While 21st century learning has been talked about in the mainstream for more than 20 years, since the 1990s, many school cultures find themselves only now, in the second decade of our 21st century, embracing the instructional impact of it. Viewed through the lens and consideration of Rushworth Kidder's moral courage and the four right versus right ethical dilemmas, it becomes easy to understand why schools have paused to consider how best to implement wide-scale technology infusion. Whether budgetary, philosophical, logistical, or simply tactical in how we move our traditionalist strategies of instruction, embracing an initiative like going one-to-one across a school immediately exposes these four dilemmas. In my own school where I am principal, we have an active technology committee that has embraced leading our decision-making through a shared decision-making paradigm. The committee is comprised completely with staff, and the majority are some of our strongest teachers. The committee is autonomous to the point where I have ceded to them the authority to make purchasing and platform decisions and even allocation decisions with regard to making teachers apply to have their own cart full of laptops 3 years ago. As a result of our school becoming a one-to-one Chromebook school last year, we have been continually evaluating, planning, and discussing our professional development needs to support those on our staff whose technological proficiency is most lacking. The committee has grown frustrated by both the continued slow embrace of those most behind their colleagues in their skill, and even more so by the poorly attended workshops designed to provide them support to assist their necessary growth. Fast forward to September of 2018, and our committee weighed the adoption of becoming paperless across our school to both model the sustainability ethos that we ascribe to for reasons other than technological, and to also create expectation of all staff to embrace technology that has been demonstrated to improve instruction. While some on our staff have students collaborating in the cloud in a manner that we are not able to replicate without technology, there are isolated members of our staff who still tell their students not to bring their Chromebooks to class because they refuse to even try to use technology instructionally. It was in the midst of this discussion that I contemplated the struggle that our committee was having. They clearly did not want to be in the role of holding colleagues accountable, but their frustration was palpable. Each of Kidder's four right versus right ethical dilemmas were staring us straight in the face, and we felt debilitated. We felt torn between driving our weakest individual teachers forward for the good of the community. We contemplated the cost to the long term of short-term top-down dam that torpedoes forced change. Should we be merciful to those teachers who lagged behind, or should we hold them accountable for all the PD sessions they chose not to attend? And we were torn between the truth of what we feel we owe our students and the loyalty we felt in trying to maintain the cohesion of a staff that sees itself as collaborative and supportive. If I took back the ownership of a top-down decision that amounted to a hierarchical and positional mandate, we might move our staff along more quickly, but it could also risk the teacher leadership paradigm we've worked so hard to cultivate over the last 6 years. Further impacting my own judgment was my self-scrutiny of whether it was my ego that led me to want to step in, or whether it was something more akin to sensitivity at wanting to remove the tension this decision was creating. Would I be perceived as soft for not taking back this decision, or perhaps wise because some might regard my actions as more patient than soft? Would I be perceived as decisive if I did take back the decision, or perhaps autocratic and dictatorial by doing so? Either decision could be regarded with polarizing contrasts of bad and good. To say that there was an uncomfortable pause in the room would be an understatement. What broke our silence was simply stating the dilemma. I put to words this challenge and how it might be regarded. I explained that it has long been our building's leadership ethos to cater to the strongest of our staff rather than our squeaky wheels, but that we never left those who might be struggling without support. Most importantly, I stated what a positive model of teacher leadership this committee had become, and that I would hate to usurp this for a short-term gain. And then I simply asked what a happy medium might be. After a long pause, one teacher said, "What if we set a timeline that, while patient in its allowance for our colleagues' growth, is also urgent in setting a reasonable countdown to when our expectations go into play?" What a powerful comment made by a phenomenal teacher. She is one of our early adopters, one of our official tech liaison coaches, and she is pursuing her ISTE certification. But despite all this, she demonstrated empathy and understanding of her colleagues. It was as if someone let all the tension out of the room. We all smiled and immediately realized this reasonable solution that accommodates all. We realized that this course might not move with the speed that we would have liked, but we also realize that there is a significant illegitimacy of the exemplar. In other words, the potential long-term fracture of our staff might do students much more damage than the short-term gain would have from driving urgency and immediacy that would create tension, fracture, and even breakage to our cohesion. The committee's ultimate decision was to exercise balance. Balance between patience and urgency would in the end yield a long-term windfall, both in the instructional practice that we desire, but also in reinforcing the cohesion that is so important to a collaborative community of phenomenal teacher leaders.